If you didn't know, now you know. You're rocking with the best. I am he, he is I, and you ain't shit. I tell your mama you ain't shit. But what I really need for you to do, and this is important, if you ain't already doing it, like, subscribe, follow, share, keep your hating ass comments to yourself because I don't think you want that smoke. Speaking of smoke, if you got them, light them. If you're on parole, hiders, the paper chasers, cannabis reviews, where all things reviewed, cannabis and all cannabis reviewed. I want to welcome y'all back to another episode / session with me. I'm going with something different for y'all today. Since we are celebrating Black History Month, I figure that I will give y'all a little Black history while I smoke. You know what I'm saying? So this is going to be entertaining and informative. Now, what I got here rolled up is Gelato by the Originals, because it's fucking fire. It's my spare smoke. When I'm not smoking something that's exclusive or a limited drop, I'm fucking with the Gelato. It's fire from them. I started rolling in backwood because I don't give a fuck. So today I want to tell you about a man named Jesse Binga. Now, Jesse Binga is the first Black person to own a private bank in these United States of America. He was born April 10th, 1865, and he passed away June 13th, 1950. He was a prominent businessman who also founded the first privately owned African American bank in Chicago. Shout out to Chicago. He was a notable pioneer of African American business achievements in the early 20th century. Binga recalled coming to Chicago in the 1890s with $10 in his pocket. You feel me? $10 in his pocket. By the 1920s, he was a bank president and a major real estate owner. Unwilling to conform to de facto private real estate segregation, white real estate interests sometimes opposed him violently. So I'm pretty sure they were showing up, throwing rocks on that bullshit, maybe throwing some bombs, bomb threats, Molotov cocktails, whatever, that kind of shit. After his bank went under in the Great Depression, he eventually was charged with embezzlement. I ain't going into no details on that, but I'm pretty sure in the 1920s, charging a Black man with embezzlement, that's probably some serious shit. And there was a controversial prosecution in the African American community. Protests and public petitions helped lead to his early release, and he was granted a full pardon in 1941. Remember his name, Jesse Binga. I'll tell you something about, he was born in Detroit in 1865, right as slavery was ending for some. He's the son of a barbershop owner and the youngest of 10 children. Here you go, Black Ant. He learned how to barber and helped his mother collect rent on properties that they owned, and he was the motherfucker to show up to unclog the toilet, fix the sink, do some drywall shit. He dropped out of high school to go work at the law offices of Thomas Crispus. Now, I don't know if y'all know about Thomas Crispus, but we're going to get to him in another later date. He made a profit from buying land on a former Indian reservation in Idaho, so that's where he got his bag from. He arrived in Chicago in 1893 for the World's Columbian Exposition and remained. He had various jobs at the time while he was in Chicago and eventually started a real estate business between 1896 and 1898. So I picked this dude up because being that we paper chasers, what other Black person better than original paper chaser, one of the first big bag chasers out here in the game, you know what I'm saying? He decided that he was gonna get a fucking bank. Fuck all that other bullshit, parents being slaves, grandparents being slaves. He wasn't going for none of that shit. But at the turn of the century, less than 2% of the total population of Chicago was made up of black people. Damn, 2%? Chicago, they got all them black people over there now. You got to do a little bit better. It was 20,000 people then. Y'all trying to, if y'all keep killing at the rate that y'all killing, in 4 years, y'all will have killed the same amount of black people that there was in Chicago at the beginning of the 1900s. Get y'all shit together. A lot of the black people lived in the Black Belt District, which covered a few blocks in each direction from State Street south to 22nd Street to 35th Street. That ain't 64th, 65th, or 63rd. You know what I'm saying? As a realtor, he purchased rundown properties which he repaired. So I can tell that sometimes things don't change. In today's climate, if you get a bag, you can definitely flip real estate. People was flipping real estate as long as there's been real estate. One thing you need to know about real estate is that you only get one earth. There ain't no new ground being made. None of that. You know what I'm saying? By the time them islands and shit get done jugging over there, you late in the game behind that shit. But the Binga Bank is what he called this bank. And in 1908, he opened it up. And it was primarily for African Americans, mainly because the banks wasn't fucking with African Americans back then. It was the first bank to be owned and run by African Americans in the North. As the bank grew, other African American businesses grew up around it, and the area became the center of black businesses development in the Chicago South Side. Ain't that where the old president from? Shout out to Barack Obama. When the Great Migration came, Binga grew even more popular because he could provide a service to the black community where previously they had been discriminated against. Eventually, Jesse Binga got a state charter for his bank and opened the Binga State Bank in 1921, which relocated to a new imposing offices in 1924. So he got his bag up and he moved up to the east side, you know what I'm saying? Despite the bank having a new status as being a real bank and not a charter bank, he still remained the largest shareholder, and his tendency to act impetuously, that means act out of just on the whim, no thought, no provocation, no none of that shit, was a personal trait that annoyed his board of directors and would come to play a part in his downfall. So we ain't gonna worry about no downfall, you know what I'm saying? My man had a wife and he had a family. Tried my man for treason. I mean, not treason, but fucking. Tried my man for fucking, not extortion, but fucking for financial. The fuck they charge him for, black man?
Fraud, I think.
For fraud. And when they charge a nigga for the fraud, but you know how that go. We already know. He had a wife, and she passed away in 1933. Excuse me. He was given, when he got out of, so we're going to talk about it because it's part of his life. He had to go to prison. As soon as the bank was closed down, Binga's activities were investigated, leading to criminal charges. He was indicted on March 1st, 1931 for embezzlement. So, without getting too in-depth into it, what they accused him of is the same shit that these big banks did. High predatory loans. Now, in 1931, as a black man, you can't do no high predatory loans. But in 2020, well, what the fuck was that? 2015, 2017, 2010, we can go all the way back. Them predatory loans came back to bite motherfuckers in the ass. That's why the housing market and shit crashed and all that fuck shit. You know what I'm saying? But they indicted my man. We know what kind of America we live in. We live in two different Americas. Things is getting better, but ain't no progress being made. They gave my man 10 years. They took all his money. They accused my man of taking business money, putting it into his personal account. They took all the bread. They tried to get my man early release. They wasn't trying to have that shit over there in Illinois. When my man's got out, he was given a $15 a week job as a janitor at St. Anselm's Church, spending the remainder of his life in poverty. Binga always maintained his innocence in the affair and was given a full pardon by Governor Dwight Green in 1941. He eventually went to live with his nephew, and he died June 13th, 1950, in St. Luke's Hospital. He was buried in Oak Woods Cemetery. Shout out to my man Jesse Binga for being the first black person to start a privately owned bank. Even though he faltered, according to them, he was still first. And we can grant him with being one of the first black people to show other black people that you can get money. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate y'all rocking with me. I hope y'all learned something about that. Don't forget his name, Jesse Binga. First black private bank owner in Chicago. I appreciate y'all eyes and y'all time. This channel's for free, so I'll never ask you for a dime. Y'all stay high, stay safe, and try not to catch a case. I'm going to bring y'all one of these every day for the month of February. It's on the 2nd, but I just came up with this idea. You know what I'm saying? So, I'll holler back at y'all players.